blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown.
You are now listening to Talk That Sports. My name is Adam, and I will be your host. Tune in for all the amazing episodes that are to come, as well as special appearances. You never know who's going to be on the show. Welcome to another episode of Talk That Sports podcast. Today's guest is a former collegiate and NFL linebacker. He played at the University of Washington for college ball. In 2011, he went on to become drafted in the NFL by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He also spent some time with the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. Please welcome to Talk That Sports podcast, Mason Foster.
What's going on, bro? Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, without a doubt, man. Man, I had to reach out and see if I could get you on my show because, man, growing up as a Husky fan, getting to watch you play, man, you were a total dog on the field.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, bro. It was always a dream to play for the Huskies. Even being from Northern California was always a big goal of mine. So, it was just a blessing to be able to play in front of those fans and, play on Montlake.
For sure. What was that experience like coming out of high school and coming to the University of Washington? Like, how was the whole atmosphere and whatnot?
It was amazing, man. I had a big senior year. I had a few years where I had played great in high school, and getting, the Pac-10 was always my goal. So getting to UW and the way that they embraced me, the way the coaches kind of, took me under their wing, and, guys like Roy Lewis, Johnny Curtin, Mesfin, all those guys, it was like a big family, man. And it was a lot more, it was really competitive. But it was like, friendly competition. Everybody was pulling for each other, but pushing you at the same time. And I felt like being an 18-year-old kid from, Seaside, California, I thrived on that. It made me better. And, I was able to, start a couple games as a true freshman, and made lifelong friends. EJ Savannah, Matt Houston, Nate Williams, Vic Ayewa, everybody. We still talk to this day. So it was just, it was overwhelming, but it was like a good overwhelming. It was a good, like jumping off the porch, throwing you in the water right away. You know what I mean? And learning how to swim. Yeah. I loved it.
For sure. What offers did you have coming out of high school? Do you remember that far back?
So really, the first offer I really had was UW. So I had UW, and I was getting recruited, but I hadn't really had anybody offer me. I knew that they were coming, but I played quarterback and linebacker in high school, and we won the CIF title. And only lost one game or whatever. So then once I went to UW, UW was smart. Coach Lopano recruited me. So my visit was literally like the next 2 days, 3 days after I won the championship. So as I went up there and met everybody, we had a big recruiting weekend. Brandon Johnson, one of my best friends, Curtis Shaw. We 23 guys on this trip. And once I went, I told my dad that this is where I wanted to be. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to be at UW. So I committed on the spot on the trip and pretty much shut everybody else off. Everybody, Colorado, Oregon, all these different schools were still trying to contact me, but I had already made my mind up to go to UW.
Okay. Did you get to enjoy the national championship this year in person?
Yeah, I actually did, bro. It was crazy. Like I haven't been, I used to go back for the spring game and, what I mean, different things like that when I was in the league. But this national championship, there was like, my wife was like, you got to go. Like, you can't miss this. Like, you have to go. So I called up Justin Glenn, another guy I played with. He's the director of alumni operations there, and he got me a ticket, and it was amazing, man. It was a tough game, but, I sat with the 1991 championship team. So it was amazing, man, seeing all the old faces, all the young guys, JoJo, everybody was there. It was just, it was an amazing experience.
Oh yeah, man. As a fan myself, just getting to sit back and I'm just watching the stories of all of the alumni. It was so surreal. And I actually just had Lincoln Kennedy, on my show. He was on the 1991 team, and spent some time with the Raiders. So that was cool chatting with him about it and the experience he got to have too.
Yeah, it was legendary, man. It was everybody that was around there and it was like we had our own side of the stadium. It was incredible, man. It was like, volleyball players that I went to school with, baseball players, just any UW, everybody was there, and it was probably the most people I've ever seen in a stadium at once. You know what I mean? I've played in the NFL, but it was like ridiculous, like how loud and everything. Nobody sat down the whole game. It was pretty crazy, man. It was.
That's wild. So for somebody, I mean, for me, I've never been to a Husky game before, but what would you describe that as a fan coming in? I mean, we already talked about the experience of playing at Husky Stadium, but how would you describe that from even from the stands?
Man, it's like UW is electrifying. You know what I mean? Like just from the uniforms. You know what I mean? To especially if you go to Montlake or playing at home is just ridiculous. But just the way our fans travel, being at the in Houston, and the kickoff where they everybody's throwing up dubs, and it's incredible, man. Just hearing everybody score, like seeing the touchdown, and everybody jumping up, high fiving. But you know what I mean? It was almost deafening. You know what I mean? But it's a good feeling, and everybody's like family. Everybody's giving out hugs and talking about the old days. So, it was incredible, man. It's just one of those things that you have to be a part of to really, especially at night. You know what I mean? If you go there at night and you play on Husky Stadium, it's some of the best times of my life. You know what I mean? Like playing in those tight. I was just talking about my senior year. I was talking to Court Dennison, and we was talking about the triple overtime or whatever overtime we played against Oregon State at night, freezing cold. You know what I mean? It was one of, the best experiences ever. You know what I mean? So playing at night in Husky Stadium is definitely like unbelievable, unreal sometimes.
Without a doubt. So I see behind you, man, it looks like you got a couple of your jerseys. It looks like a Jermaine Kearse, who you played with at one point during his college career. And is that Nelson Aguilar?
Nelson Aguilar. We got Shaq and Austin.
Okay.
So
okay.
I try to get all the Husky guys when they're young, and guys that Pac-10 guys that I played against or that I watched throughout the years. So it's it's always pretty cool. They're all over the house, you know what I mean? So I love it.
Gotcha. I actually played against Jermaine Kearse and Cavario Middleton in high school, man, and what's some scary dudes to play against, man. I tell you what.
They had a stacked team, man. That's crazy. They were all on one team.
Yeah, without a doubt. So what grew your love for football? I mean, at one point in life, something had to introduce you to that and then said, hey, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, it was, I would say, that's a great question. I would say, I grew up playing baseball because it's not like it is now where, my little boy's been playing since they were 7. So we couldn't play till we were 9. But, my older cousins all played. They were good football players in the Bay Area and Seaside. So, growing up watching the older guys in the neighborhood play, it was something that I figured I would be good at. I really wanted to try. I played with you always grew up playing with the older kids on the street. And by the time I got to, I would say like 9th grade, sophomore year, I started realizing that I could actually play. You know what I mean? I was already like 6'1", 6'2". And, I was like, I think I can at least go to college. You know what I mean? I think I can get a free degree or, go play. And, it just kind of like kept going. Then I got to college and then I realized like, oh, I could really play. So the love of it really started like, I played as a 9-year-old with the 12-year-olds. And I played center though. So I really loved it. I loved the contact and the physicalness. And then it just kept growing year by year. I was like, oh, I could play with these guys. I could play with these guys. And it just became my main thing. That in school was like all I was worried about until I got to college.
Okay. So I know you mentioned high school ball. And again, I will say it probably many times throughout this is, I mean, you were a dog, man, through high school, college, and even NFL. A huge stat of yours was back in high school, you led your team's defense to just 6 points per game during regular season. And, record, I think it was like 4 shutouts, right? And even taking over at quarterback at one point. How was that? I mean, were they already saying, hey, we're going to throw Mason Foster in at quarterback? Or was it just like, our quarterback got hurt? How did that all go down? I mean, that's never heard of, really.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because my dad he always coached the younger kids. So he coached me when I was growing up, whatever, but he wasn't really my coach. But, he knew that I could play quarterback, but I didn't really like to play quarterback. I wanted to hit people and stuff. Because a lot of times, you play quarterback, sometimes they wouldn't let you play defense. So nobody really ever knew that I could play. I would be the backup quarterback. And then, my freshman year, our quarterback he was crazy. He got arrested or something, he was a crazy dude, JT. And then they moved me to quarterback, and I threw for like 400 yards against our rivals. And they're like, oh man, like you can really like play quarterback. You just don't know the plays. So then as I got older, I still was playing like running back and fullback or whatever. And then my senior year, we lost that one game to Novato up past San Francisco. And then they moved me to quarterback. And then we just, I was running the ball, throwing the ball. We just had like complete spread, no huddle, 5 wide receivers, and nobody could really stop us. So, you know what I mean? And the coach was just telling me like, you still going to play linebacker, but, just don't take any hits on offense. Don't. So I was just sliding and running out of bounds, and it was cool. It worked. It worked for us. You know what I mean? I tried not to get hit and just outran everybody, and then still focused on defense. So it was fun, man. It was the quarterback before me, his name was Ty Powell. He actually played for the Buffalo Bills too. So it was just, we had a talented team. You know what I mean? I was just the quarterback,
Did you have to change up your shoulder pads, or did you still use your same ones as a linebacker?
Same ones, but you know what I mean? I had one of the little freshmen hold my gloves on the sideline. That was it, because people would like try to take my gloves, you know what I mean? They would like take them, I'm playing quarterback, so I'd take them off. And then like, you go on defense, you're trying to find your gloves in your belt or whatever, you know what I mean? And then the other team had threw them down. So I'm like, nah, that's the only thing I had to change was, hey, hold my gloves so I don't lose them, you know what I mean? I had the nice cut too. I couldn't lose those.
See, man, I played offensive line and defensive line, and we used to do some like tackling drills, and we had one person acting like a running back, and Reggie Bush is my all-time favorite running back, man. He was a beast in college, and I used to try to mimic him, and I used to think I was cool doing it, but I probably looked really sloppy.
I getting off, man. Reggie Bush is by far probably like. He's probably one like top 3 my favorite. Even my little boys watch him to this day, pull up his highlights, and it's just like Reggie was that guy for real.
Oh yeah. No, I had to introduce my girlfriend to Reggie Bush's highlights and even Ricky Williams. I loved Ricky Williams as well, man.
Yeah, at Texas, he was going off.
Oh yeah. So we talked about some of your high school, but even college, man, coming in as a freshman, a true freshman, you started all 13 games. Senior year, 13 games, and even sophomore and junior, you played 12 games. Where did you get this fight in you from? Like, was there anybody that you got your play style from? Any players growing up that you used to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved, even though I grew up a Raiders fan, and my dad was super diehard Raiders fan. My uncles, everybody. Yeah. But being a Raiders fan, I always watched like Junior Seau growing up. You know what I mean? I always watched the Chargers. So I always like, man, like Junior Seau, he was a beast just running, how his motor was so much. So I figured my dad would always harp that to me. You know what I mean? All my cousins, like, if you just run, just keep running, keep playing as hard as possible, everything else will work out itself. So I always thought, it's like, if you can, the only way you're ever going to know how good you really are is if you take on the best people that you know. So all the time, since high school, Pop Warner, all the way up. Like I remember getting to camp and I was like, man, at my high school, we didn't really watch film or nothing, none of that. It was old. So we didn't watch none of that stuff. We didn't get our ankles taped or nothing. So when I got to UW, I'm like, I got my ankles taped. I'm really watching film, like really trying to study people. And I was like, I want to go against the best people there are on this team. I want to play against the older kid, the older seniors, you know what I mean? So that's how I ended up earning a spot, was just like competing. I was like, now if I go up against them and they beat me, I could shake his hand and be like, all right, he's better than me. But I got to go at him first instead of like somebody just telling me he's better than you. That's how I was raised, you know what I mean? Like, you got to prove it to me first, or you know what I mean? I'm not really going to believe the hype. Like, I want to test myself against you.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, some of your accolades while playing at UW, you were an All-American. You were even the defensive MVP honors in that Holiday Bowl against Nebraska. And it was hard to watch that game. Yeah, Tyler Martinez, the quarterback. I mean, dude was kind of like a running back as well and just running all over the place. That was just scary times, man. But with you in the backfield, it definitely made us feel a little bit easier.
Yeah, he was I remember that first game we played him, and he had like a long 80-yard run. They had Rex Burkhead. They, not Nebraska, Niles Paul. I mean, they had a good team. So I knew, that we got to get him back. You know what I mean? That's why I was like, let's just blitz. Like, let's not sit back. Because he was so fast, you know what I mean? Like, let's not sit back and wait for him. Let's just go get him. You know what I mean? Let's play our fastest guys and go get him. And we definitely bottled them up. And those black uniforms help out too, man. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? We throw on the black uniforms, and most of us was from California. So, we all playing in front of our families. It was a different vibe than, you know what I mean? Like the first game playing in the daytime. Like, it was just different. We had grew up a lot as a team that year.
Oh, without a doubt. And man, I have to say you were a tough, physical, smart inside linebacker. I mean, you could see plays develop. You also played downhill and we're a very strong tackler at the point of impact. I tell my girlfriend all the time, like, look, like these guys should be wrapping up when they tackle. A lot of guys just want to arm tackle or even try to get those big hits. But man, you were just a smart player all in all. And I have to say, man, defensive rookie of the year, you should have gotten that, man, over Von Miller, just me personally. But
thank you, man.
Yeah. Without a doubt. What was the transition like for you leaving from college, even going to the NFL, to Tampa Bay, where you had a defensive-minded coach in Raheem Morris?
It was a little crazy just because, I mean, I was going through the lockout, so I didn't get to go to mini camp or go see the. So after I got drafted, I went to, they flew me out. I had never been to Tampa, you know what I mean? So they flew me to Tampa. I got to meet the coaches. They lifted the lockout for like one day. So I met the two other, I was drafted third. So I met AC and Daquan Bowers, and then met the coaches, the owners. They were all cool. Then went to the hotel and flew back the next day. And that was the last time I had talked to them until August when they lifted the lockout. So we didn't really have no regular, the transition was a little rough, but once I got to camp, it was like the same mentality. Like, if I could learn it, you know what I mean? If I could kind of like learn, because they moved me to Mike too. So I was like, if I could learn the defense and learn how to call it, I think I got a good shot at starting. So then I just took everything head on, like just took it all like. But the hardest part about it was really the heat, man. Like coming from Seattle, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, it's like 106 degrees out here. There's no wind. You know what I mean? I'm like, I was working out with the, Coach Ivan and UW the whole summer. So I was doing the mat drills at 6 a.m, but nothing prepared me for like the heat. So that was like one of the toughest things was getting used to the heat. And then, the schedule of an NFL player is like going to school and playing football, but it's all football. So it's like weight room, treatment, studying, practice, walkthroughs, everything, like whole day, like 12 hours was, I loved it. I loved it though, but it did that heat. And then how much chance you get to rest, that definitely was probably the hardest part of the adjustment. You know what I mean? Like you don't get to chill no more. You got to really learn and study each week.
Without a doubt. See, I went to Orlando in 2013 and man, I made the decision to leave Washington State in sweatpants and slides and a hoodie, man. I did not prepare. By the time the plane landed and we're sitting there ready to, get off the plane, man, I was sweating. I was like, what? And then I stepped outside. I'm like, yeah, man, this is not good. But I mean, I would go back again without a doubt.
Different, man. It'll sneak up on you too.
Without a doubt. As a rookie, you stepped into a locker room with the quarterback and Josh Freeman. You had even LeGarrette Blount and Gerald McCoy, all young guys with even some veterans in there like Kellen Winslow, Rondé Barber, and Michael Bennett. How welcoming were they, or how was that locker room environment?
It was cool, man. It was a lot, it was a lot more, some of them were crazy. Like some of the dudes, like a lot of the linebackers, they had like crazy requests, you know what I mean? And I was the second highest. We were all defense, but I was the only like linebacker to get drafted that high. So we were, I had to go get their food for them. And, of course, get to the league, some of the dudes that like have crazy diets. So, I was all around the city. Like, I didn't have a car and then because we had the lockout. So I had the little interns chauffeur me around and get everybody their diets and their juices. It was just crazy. But besides that, most of the guys were all real cool. You know what I mean? They were all like, real inviting, you know what I mean? Like they would take you out to dinner. Coach Rob was really, he was young, so he looked out for us. And Rondé, was a legend already. So I was kind of starstruck by him, him and K2, Kellen Winslow, that was like guys I had watched growing up, you know what I mean? Like guys I had like it was pretty crazy to like see him. And Rondé, he was just no nonsense, like straight up and down. He was like the OG. So but they were all good resources to have as a young player. You know what I mean? Like if it was treatment, they would send you to their massage lady, look out for you, pay for it. So it was, it's all real welcoming, but you definitely had to like, go pick up their food for them, make sure, you know what I mean? Or pay for their dinner, but it was all love, man. And I wouldn't change none of it because they were all really, really nice guys. And they, taught me a lot, which helped my career last longer,
Exactly. I mean, you stepped in as a rookie and was a starter, man. That's you went from outside linebacker to middle linebacker. So I would say that's even a huge accomplishment on its own. When making that transition, was it any different or was it quite a bit different?
It was, I had as my true freshman year, I had started at Mike, like in nickel, you know what I mean? We played Hawaii, like passing situations. So I had known, the scheme and, I had talked to like older players. So when it was still a lockout, but we had a rookie symposium. So the NFL like flew you out. It was different than the regular one. So the NFL flew us out to Bradenton, but at that same time, the Bucs, they were throwing, not the Bucs, the players were throwing their own fake mini camp at IMG. So luckily the NFL let me go over there, and there was like a couple like 5-year, 6-year LBs who were real, real nice guys, really understanding Adam Hayward and Quincy Black. And they kind of like taught it to me. So we did 7-on-7. We went through drills. So I kind of like understood like a little bit. I didn't know the blitzes and, everything like that. But I knew like what I was supposed to do. And they were like good, like big brothers to me to this day. You know what I mean? Even as they've been retired. You know what I mean? Like, I used to call him up during the lockout and ask him like, hey, so, you got a spill on this play? He was like, nah, it's cover 2. Everything is spill. You don't hammer anything. Everything is spill. You spill everything. So that was the way I was able to pick it up pretty quick because I had, Adam Hayward, who was a backup Mike, he was like a utility player. And he really, he's from Long Beach or something. So he really like helped me out with that. We was both from California, and he was able to really, teach it to me in a different language. And I was able to transfer that to the field. And then, in the passing situations, I had Rondé, probably one of the greatest nickels ever. I had Rondé next to me, so he was low-key teaching me what I needed to know and what to look out for and how to blitz, and you know what I mean? So I was just blessed with, a pretty good situation as, a 22-year-old rookie.
Okay. And then you spent a little bit of time in Chicago and even DC. What was those experiences like?
I mean, Chicago was cold, man. Like that was just like, it was like I went there I signed there as a free agent, and it was Vic Fangio, so it was good to learn stuff from all them. But I ended up getting cut. I had a great preseason and everything, but I knew that they were trying to get younger, and I was coming off a dislocated shoulder that I didn't have surgery on, so they were like kind of like cautious with me and everything. But it was good to learn that because that was my first introduction to the 3-4, and it was from a legendary coach like Vic Fangio. So then I was able to take that and go to DC. And I was just pretty much waiting on my chance. Like they started making packages for me. You know what I mean? I would come in on different downs because, like even in college, I would rush off the edge sometimes. I could do a little bit of like, everything. So they started making packages for me. And every day I just thought of it like I'm getting better because I know I'm going to get a shot. You know what I mean? So scout team, you know what I mean? Because that's when McVay was so I knew that I was getting a good look on offense too. Like those were, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Reed, Pierre Garçon, Deshaun Jackson. So I was like, man, I'm trying to get better. You know what I mean? I'm going to take this as a chance to really learn and get better. So by the time I got a chance to play halfway through the year, we end up running the table and, making the playoffs. So, it was a great experience, man. It was just, you just have to make the most of your opportunities when, you know what I mean? Some people, just chill and, I understand it, whatever, but I was like, man, I need to, get back to it. I missed 3 weeks. You know what I mean? I missed 3 weeks of training with Matt Houston in South Dakota. So I was like, when I came back in, I was like one-on-ones, every rep, I got to win everything. And I think that helped extend my career again.
For sure. What would you say is your career highlight? I mean, you've gotten to pick off guys like McNabb and Drew Brees. I mean, legendary quarterbacks. What would you say your career highlight was?
Man, that's crazy. I was thinking this. I would say my career highlight for me was definitely, what everybody's going to remember. And it was a crazy, it was a crazy game, but that Drew Brees interception, that it was just like, it was almost on the same level as the one in college, against Arizona. Like, people will always remember that 85-yard touchdown return. But, it's just the backstory of Drew Brees, the Saints had called me on draft day at pick 72, then hung up the phone. So it was just like a whole, it's like a whole backstory on that. There was a rain delay where we had to sit in the locker room for an hour and 30 minutes, but it was one of those games where, one of those moments in my career where I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, this is crazy. Like, I really picked off Drew. I still got the ball. I keep most of all the interception balls, and, I got it hung up and everything. So that was like one of my biggest. I think that was my first NFL touchdown too. So, as a kid, you can only dream about, scoring in the NFL. And my first one was off Drew Brees for 85 yards. So I think that's something I always remember. You know what I mean? Like, he's like that's how I used to watch the Chargers growing up, because they played the Raiders. You know what I mean? So it was just like, unbelievable.
No, without a doubt, man. No, that's awesome. I mean, you got to live the dream that a lot of us who play ball wanted to, to live, and just hearing that, it's crazy, man. So, I appreciate you sharing that. When did you realize it was time to hang it up and just say, hey, you know what, this time?
Yeah, it was like, I knew in 2017, I had dislocated my other shoulder, my right shoulder. So instead of trying to play through it this time, and it was my contract year too. So I went and had surgery on it. I went and got everything done. And I kind of knew that year that, it was just like, man, I don't know, how bright the future's looking anymore. I'm turning 30 years old, or, I was 29, turning 30 next year. And I was just like, I don't know, how much longer, this is going to last, because my body was starting to, break down. I was playing, 80 something, 85%, 90% of the snaps every year for my whole career. So it was the lowest might've been 70%. So, or 80%, because, they put the escalators in your contract. So I was always trying to meet these escalators and, be physical. So I knew that after that, I kind of was like, and then my last year, it was just complete, it was hectic. You know what I mean? My body was falling apart. I was trying to play through it. And it was just my kids are getting older, they're starting to grow up and, play sports themselves. And it was just I need to, really think about if this is realistic to keep putting my body on the line like that. And it just came down to it. When I got cut, I knew it was probably time to, so I tried for another year, going to tryouts and stuff, but it just wasn't the same as when I was younger. When you lining up during OTAs or whatever, and you're running, you're like, oh, we got 6 gassers, 8 gassers, whatever, you know what I mean? And you lining up, and there's a 21-year-old, another 21-year-old, and you're 30. He's kind of you know what I mean? I don't know if this is me anymore.
No, without a doubt, man. I mean, even now, man, playing lineman, I used to show off in the locker room in high school, and it's catching up to me now, man. My knees are done, and it's I'm only 33, man. We're not that far apart on age,
Yeah, anybody who's a real, athlete, they know when it's not the same. I could play it off, you know what I mean? I could still get down, but it was nah, I can't. It's not the same level, you know what I mean? I don't feel the burst and the, the strength I used to have and everything. So I knew it was probably one more year, maybe, and it was going to be over. It was probably going to be done anyway. But my goal was always to play 6. I was I want to play 6 years. And then I made it to 6. I was I think I could play 8 or 10. And I got to 8, and then it said, nah, man, it's over. The knees and the shoulders said, nah, you got to sit it down, bro. My feet was hurting. It's over, Mace. You got to sit down and just be a dad. So, yeah, it was a fun career, man. I'm happy about everything that I was able to accomplish, but I knew it was time to kind of shut it down.
No, without a doubt, man. No, it's it was a pleasure watching you in the college NFL. Gotten to watch you play with guys like Jake Locker, Chris Polk, Nate Williams. Got to watch their careers and whatnot. But man, I kind of want to end it out with just a shout out real quick to the owner of my employer. I told him, I was like, man, I'm talking to Mason Foster today because I've seen all of his memorabilia in the office, and he was like, oh, my son's name is Mason, and I named him after Mason Foster. So I just wanted to shout that out real quick. Yeah. But man, I just want to end it here with who was Mason Foster?
Man, I want people, I'm a great teammate, great friend. And, I always, put my heart into everything that I do, man, real passionate. But, you know what I mean? Like, if people really ask me, you know what I mean? Like, man, I'm a Husky through and through. I felt like that's what shaped who I am today, man. You know what I mean? And it's not just football. It was being in Seattle, meeting the different people, like yourself, being able to, talk to people, chop it up, on a real level, you know what I mean? Like, I may have the accolades and played on TV, but I'm just regular dad, you know what I mean? Like, see people do good and, try to help where help is needed, whatever I can do to be a good person, man. And I feel like that's what, I learned being in Seattle, being around, the great people, the great fans, the Husky fans, and, catching the bus with people when I was living in Lake City. So, I feel like, I'm just a good person, man. I try my best to, do what's right and, be there for other people.
Without a doubt. Do you ever make your way back to Washington ever?
Yeah, man. Actually, it's been a minute, you know what I mean? Because my little boys are, they're in track, football, baseball, 7-on-7. Yeah, they do everything. But we're definitely going to make it back in this coming up year for a football game. You know what I mean? We're going to make it back to watch one of the night games I was talking about earlier. I told my boys they got to see it. Your dad was a beast, even though they don't see it now. They still, I don't know, Dad. I'm like, well, let's go back to Seattle. We're going to go back to Seattle so you can see everybody. You know what I mean? But so we're definitely going to be back as a whole family, taking my boys to see the stadium and, see all the homies that I used to play with. So it should be a good time.
You definitely should, man. It's going to be an exciting year for Husky football, and can't wait to see how that's going to unfold. It was a bummer to start out, but now Coach Fish has got it turned around. I really have a good feeling about that.
They're going to be rolling, man. Watch. They're going to be rolling.
Without a doubt, man. Well, no, I appreciate you coming on and just chatting with me. And, yeah, man, feel free to stay in touch if you like. And, hope to chat with you in the future.
Yeah, always, bro. Thanks for having me, man. That's love, for real.
For sure, man.
I just wanted to take a moment and thank the podcast sponsor, StreamYard. Without StreamYard, none of this would be possible. I also want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching this episode, whether you're streaming it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or watching on YouTube. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for many more episodes.